Please take your seats. We will begin the afternoon session. Welcome back from lunch. And I hope it wasn't too heavy. I mean, we need to be alert to consider the reports. So in the first session, we considered WP 306 revision 1 and WP 307, and we adopted both reports for presentation to the plenary next Friday. We will continue with consideration of the draft reports concerning sub-item 6.3, 6.31, 6.32 on monitoring and oversight, specifically on the use of CMA evolution and support for the use of CMA online framework. And that is working paper 308, revision 1. Working paper 308, revision 1. Again, let me reiterate, for us to manage our time very efficiently, let's not start a new debate or open up discussions on this agenda item, but rather, if you review the report and in your view an issue is not accurately reflected or has been omitted, then you can take the floor to clarify that specific issue. And, you know, and when you make a general statement and you feel something is not properly captured, you could propose a text to save time. But if you leave it so open, you know, it leaves room for more discussions and we lose time. So we want to stay very, very focused so that we can complete our consideration of the remaining papers today. So we will start with WP 308 revision number 1. And we start with 631, 632, 3334, up to 6.38. I think we can take all, the entire paper, the way it is. So let's consider the entire paper. If you have a comment, you just press the button. South Africa, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Chair. There's a terminology in aviation which is called to go around. And going around is not abandoning a flight. I think a lot of air traffic controllers and pilots will know that when I say go around, it's not abandoning the flight. So we wish to make a go around. And a go around, it means clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I'd like to beg your indulgence with an issue that I've raised before. South Africa would like to highlight a concern related to our previous intervention on GASP, but this time the definition of safety partners. I refer you to my previous intervention and response from the Secretariat with regards to Working Paper 306 and Working Paper 44. Which the Secretariat then referred me to Working Paper 308, in which safety partners are meant to be defined, but was not. Chairperson, unless I was sleeping when I was reading Working Paper 308 and suddenly got up this morning and decided it was not there, I have no other words to say that in Working Paper 308, there is no safety partners being defined. And I would like the Secretariat to have some sort of clarification with regards to why did you refer me to Working Paper 308 when, in fact, safety partners was not defined in 308. We also feel that in this case that a definition needs to be created, that they may have some sort of qualification criteria as to who and what can be labeled as a safety partner under the circumstances such as safety partners can be used. We feel that safety partners will inevitably also be called to act on behalf of a state or group of states in interactions with other states. which will then create its own problems in terms of diplomatic relations and official positions. Of course, when the delegated safety partner of a state is then also a commercial entity, we get back into our concerns with respect to GASOs. Thank you, Chairperson, for allowing me to put forth this intervention.
Thank you, South Africa. I'll give the floor to Secretariat to respond to the concerns raised on definition of safety partners, conditions under which services or safety partners could be used, and so on. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, South Africa, and I'm sorry if I was not clear. I think I meant the issue of safety partner was addressed in the USOP-related agenda item, not defined. Actually, during the lunch break, and very grateful to all the delegates from a number of African states and European states that got together with a lot of goodwill to try to further clarify the text in 6.3.4 to avoid any confusion. So I'm proposing, with your acceptance, Mr. Chair, to read the amended text, and hopefully that will solve maybe the lack of clarity. So, with your permission, Mr. Chair, I will just verbally amend the proposed amendment of 6.3.4. The committee reviewed Working Paper 44 presented by the European Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, on behalf of the European Union and its member states, the other member states of the European Civil Aviation Conference, and by Eurocontrol, proposing the measures to increase the efficiency of the USOP CMA. So far, no change. The committee discussed the proposal made to delegate some ICAO functions and responsibilities under the USOP CMA to safety partners. Concerns were expressed regarding the lack of definition of safety partners and designees in Working Paper 44. Concerns were also expressed that safety partners might include commercial entities and that the delegation of some ICAO functions and responsibilities under the USOP CMA might impact the necessary independence of the program and the standardization and global acceptance of its results. European states intervened to clarify that their proposal did not include delegation to commercial entities. The committee discussed the recommendation contained in paragraph 3.1.c of Working Paper 44, and many states did not support this recommendation. Therefore, the committee agreed that such issues should be referred to a study group addressing the further evolution of the USOP CMA beyond the GSR recommendation as a matter of priority. Then the rest of the paragraph remains unchanged, starting with respect to safe risk profile, the committee noted, up to online framework, which concludes paragraph 6.3.4. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat, for the clarification in the revised text. As Secretariat indicated, there was a lot of consultation between a number of European and African states to arrive at this text. South Africa, I hope this clarifies the issue.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I'm now comfortable with the amended text as proposed by the Secretariat, and thank you once again for reconsidering that paragraph.
Thank you, South Africa. Spain, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon to everyone. My first comment refers to page 1 under 6.3.2. On the last line, it's an editorial change to align this text in the last line with recommendation 6.31/1F. So instead of saying monitoring, it should say audit, so that it reads audit mechanism. That is our first comment. Then secondly, on page 3 now, on 6.3.9, recommendation 6.3/1, paragraph E. At the beginning, I'd like to add something, and I'll read it out in English.
Priority. Luego, continuar.
And then continue with the actual text. And at the end, I'd like to add something.
In particular, make available to states the state safety risk profiles.
Thank you.
Sorry,
okay.
I have more comments, sorry. Entonces...
And we have another additional comment. We propose the deletion of G under the same recommendation 6.3/1. And under H, we suggest that instead of saying remains relevant, we would rather have reflects the actual situation and safety oversight, and thus remain robust. Namely, the text would read as follows now.
El punto H.
So this is H.
Resources to ensure the continuous monitoring of the state reflects the actual situation in safety oversight and thus remains robust.
And then that is all. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Spain. Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding paragraph 6.1.3, it's 2. It's an omission from our part, so apologies. To be consistent, definitely we have to replace ICAO monitoring mechanism by ICAO audit mechanism. Regarding the recommendations contained in paragraphs 3.6.3.9, we would like to propose the following. For E, to reflect the intervention from Spain, as a matter of priority, implement the recommendation and observations of the group of experts for the use of CMS structured review, GSR, and in particular make available to states the set of indicators forming part of the state safety risk profile. And this is consistent with the explanation I gave during the discussion that the safety risk profile is a concept, is not a set of parameters or tools. So we have no issue. It's in line with the GSR recommendation to expand this set of indicators forming the state safety risk profile. And as the text mentions, they're made available to state through the OLF. So that would be consistent with the body of the report. So, and in particular, make available to states the set of indicators forming part of the state safety risk profile. Finally, regarding the H, the recommendation number H, devote appropriate resources to ensure the continuous monitoring of the states remains, etc. The word reality seems to be very ambitious because continuous monitoring is not that we are standing behind every state every second. So that's really the monitoring by the state themselves. And the up-to-date is really reflecting the currency and the reflection of when did we address, for example, a particular PQ. So the proposal from the Secretariat would be to add robust. So it would read, devote appropriate resources to ensure that the continuous monitoring of the states remains robust, relevant, and up-to-date. And we believe that will convey the important messages. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat, for the clarification and your proposed incorporation of Spain's views. Senegal, You have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Chairman. Perhaps I seem to be going back, but I would like things to be clear. And as was just said, when looking at 306, and this is in reference to safety partners, but it was clarified now that this will not be mentioned in 308, then I think we should go back and review 306. And so I propose that we have consensus. I would like to propose for GASOs that we limit ourselves for the moment to the CAAs and also to the RSOOs, which means the safety partners are not clarified or validated yet. I think it's a term that we cannot, for the moment, take into account in interventions regarding the aspects related to GASOs. I think that's a safe approach, which will help us to move ahead. And once the work will be done and finalized, all of these aspects can then be revisited and entered into the document. That was what I wanted to clarify, Chairman. I didn't want to move backwards, but it was something that I'd mentioned to myself in my notebook, that I wanted to come back to that. And since it was brought up before me, I just wanted us to simplify matters and that we limit ourselves only to CAAs and RSOOs in the framework of GASOs until such time as the study is done and we can see how we will qualify the other aspects. Because if we talk about safety partners, I think it's simply premature from the point of view that this concept is under discussion, and what's been said since Swaziland is that we would limit ourselves to the CAAs and also to the RSOOs. Thank you, Chair.
Senegal, in consideration of WP306, I mean, looking at the report, there was no specific reference to safety partners. And what was referred to was state civil aviation authorities, regional safety oversight organizations, RSOOs, and other regional state-based mechanisms in Senegal. And what we could do is to get a better understanding of the issue raised, I mean, offline, and we can look at it. But maybe I'll hand over to Secretariat to further clarify, because there's no reference to safety partners in WP306. Secretariat?
Yeah, I think that the safety partners come in the working paper 44. It's a wider term that we are using in ICAO, the safety aviation safety partners. It was part of different resolution of the last assembly and of high-level safety conference, when we encourage and states are encouraged to use aviation safety partners in a context of technical assistance cooperation and help to solve their, starting with the SSCs and their gap in their safety oversight systems. So, as I said, it wasn't attached to the concept of the GASP, the safety partners, and that specific term, regional state-based mechanism, it's put it there just to make sure that we have a clarification that the RSOs and the states are not the only mechanisms created today. We don't have a big problem here, but once again, I think we need to be careful, because there are other parts of the world that are using different mechanisms. In Africa, the most prominent are the RSOs, but as I said, right now you have mechanisms through which you, as an CAA, as a state, you can use a safety inspector through the AFICIS process, and you can use it in your safety oversight activities. And this is practically how does it work. So it's functioning today. This kind of mechanism, like AFICIS or cost caps, are not necessarily referred in here. But once again, we don't want to go in an idea where we have a problem or we consider this as being commercial activities. So just to make clear, and we have a broader list of these examples of state, but we can clarify, as the chair said, in particular, because we've had the discussion on Wednesday, we've closed the agenda in the morning, so I'd be more than happy to clarify with you all the elements that we were thinking about and to come with some example later on.
Okay, thank you, Secretary. So, Senegal, we could meet afterwards to look at your concerns. And we've already closed 306, and I don't want us to start discussing that now, but I believe your concern was the inclusion of the regional state-based mechanisms. We can discuss it afterwards and see the way forward. Thank you very much. So we are on 308 revision 1, and Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to respond to the previous intervention and clarify the status. Under 6.3.9, the recommendation 6.3/1G. While we would like all recommendations implemented immediately from the GEUSR, we recognise the challenges in resources for both ICAO and states. Thus, in Working Paper 79, we sought to give priority to those that will give the most benefit and work that would be foundational for all other reforms, the restructure of the PQs. We think it is important to have that as a priority standalone from the other work, not diminishing the importance of the other work, but recognising that prioritising all is the same as prioritising none. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. Secretary, do you want to comment? Okay, your comments noted. Thank you. AFCAC, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We propose that you add a recommendation after F. It's a new item, just to take care of the discussions that we had according to paragraph 6.3.4, line 6, and the text as recommended should read, address concerns raised by the delegation of some, sorry, I'll take that one again, address concerns raised that delegation of some ICAO functions and responsibilities under the USOAP CMA would impact the necessary independence of the program and the standardization and global acceptance of its results.
Thank you. If you look at last paragraph I, towards the end, it says, while maintaining safeguards to guarantee the independence, universality, standardization, and global acceptance in the implementation of the program. Then in the body of the report itself, I think on the 634, it is captured. But I'll leave the floor to Secretariat to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As much as we hear the intervention from AFCAC, we believe from the Secretary, like the Chair said, that I is wider, so captures this with very strong words, while maintaining safeguards to guarantee the independence, universality, standardization, global acceptance in the implementation of the program. And it talks in a wider manner about the evolution of the program with everything that has been noted in the discussion from this conference and the working papers, whether they have been fully supported or partially supported or there was not full support. and that is on the further consideration of possible delegations or work in partnerships in general. But there was also the working paper from Canada on widening, for example, maybe enhancing the timeliness of the use of auditor training program. And while we would consider this as part of the study group, we would have to maintain the balance between these needs to have more flexibility and the imperative to maintain the standardization, again, and independence. So we believe that the recommendation I would actually address the issue that you just mentioned now, and will address other evolutions possible in aspects of the use of CMA, including the training of auditors. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Canada appreciated the fulsome discussion around working paper number 122. Canada would like to recommend that the summary of it reflect the committee's discussion on the possibility of credit being extended to experts that have participated in peer assessments of other states. As such, Mr. Chairperson, in keeping with your guidance, Canada would offer the following wording to be added at the end of paragraph 6.3.5. In addition, the committee discussed the possibility to give credit to experts having participated in peer assessments of other states to enhance the timeliness of USOAP auditor training. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Canada. Secretariat?
We have no issue at all with this. This is what was discussed, so the addition is accepted from our side. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. That brings us to the consideration of WP 308 Revision 1. And so the committee has reviewed the working paper, the draft reports on the use of CMA, and various amendments have been made as proposed by the floor, and the adopted report will reflect the proposed changes. Thank you very much for your support. Yesterday there was one information paper on yogic, like yoga exercises from India. This would be the appropriate time for all of us to stretch for a minute and do some yoga. But I don't think the yoga expert is around. So we'll go straight to WP 309. WP 309. Nicholas, are you doing yoga?
Okay. I do meditation, but I don't do yoga. But if you can teach me, I'll be...
I'm not an expert. Okay. Let's give a minute for the Secretariat to reorganize themselves. We'll continue with the draft report on agenda item 7. That is working paper 309. Working paper 309, draft report on agenda item 7 on operational safety risk. So we'll consider subparagraphs 7.1 to 7.6. 7.5 and 7.6 are on page 2. The floor is open. 7.1 to 7.6. Singapore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have some editorial amendments to paragraph 7.6, and we have already provided the text to the Secretariat, and we'll be pleased to discuss with the Secretariat to finalize the text. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Singapore. And the Secretariat will work with you to finalize as you've indicated. So we look at other safety intelligence initiatives, 7.7 to 7.11, including the recommendations up to K. Nigeria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While reading the recommendation on that is captured in 7.1/2, paragraph D, it appears that the conclusion of that sentence, there's something missing. I don't know what the intention is, but if you read it, it's not ending well.
Yeah, you are right. It ends in conducting. There's something missing. And okay, so Secretariat will look at it and provide the appropriate correction. Thank you very much, Nigeria, for spotting the omission. United States.
Thank you, Chair. Following the comments of Singapore, the United States had provided feedback earlier on some suggested wording changes to the Secretariat. If you don't need us to reintroduce those wording changes here, we're happy to work with you to finalize them.
Thank you, United States. Yeah, so the Secretariat will work with you to get appropriate text. Secretariat wants to comment. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in principle, we agree with the U.S., except there is a proposed new recommendation that needs to be read out.
Okay, we will.
So if you can read out the recommendation, and then we'll take that on board.
U.S., you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The proposed new recommendation is actually under recommendation 7.2.1, and the wording we proposed was to support better alignment and harmonization between the PERGs and RASGs while maintaining the safety framework of the RASGs through consultation with the member states. Thank you.
Thank you, U.S. So Secretariat will have further discussions with you to get it properly refined. Thank you very much, United States. Netherlands, you have the floor.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to make a recommendation in 7.1/1 at the end, so after K, a new one, L, I can read it out. Support regional mechanisms and platforms that enable states and industry stakeholders to perform greater sharing and alignment of safety priorities.
Kindly repeat.
Yes. So it's a new recommendation after K, and it reads, support regional mechanisms and platforms that enable states and industry stakeholders to perform greater sharing and alignment of safety priorities.
Thank you very much, Netherlands. Secretariat, you want to comment on their proposal?
In principle, we're okay with the proposal. We perhaps need to refine the text a little bit, but we're happy to work with the Netherlands on that.
Okay. Thank you, Secretariat. ACI, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologise for maybe having missed the cue to intervene earlier on the report text and not on the recommendations. But if I could take it back to, with your permission, to 7.8, we made a small proposal to amend the third line of that text to add some more clarification. And if you like, I can read that out. Otherwise, I could leave it to the Secretariat to agree with that.
I think you read it. Yeah, ACI, you can read the text, proposed text.
Thank you, yes. So it would continue after the text says, provided an overview of the array of ACI activities and initiatives related to aerodrome safety, and then would add, including runway safety, safety data, SMS implementation, and aerodrome certification. Thank you.
Thank you, ACI. And Secretariat have noted your proposed inclusion to the report. Thank you very much. Colombia.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have one request. Please don't make changes to the report outside of the committee, because otherwise we're going to have completed the report, but we will not have been able to actually express our opinions. All of the participants should be informed about everything that's going to be included, and we want to have all of the amendments and modifications expressed publicly here in the committee.
Yeah, thank you. Most of the inputs are editorial, and those which tend to amend the content of the report we discuss here. And we can trust the Secretary to dot all the I's and cross the T's for us. Yeah, thank you. Colombia, your point is noted, yeah. And everything will be shared, transparent, and more so when we do not want to open another debate at the plenary next Friday, because our understanding is, since we've had 3 days of vigorous debates, a day to review the draft report, incorporate all amendments, we're not going to start all over again next Friday. Colombia, your point is well noted. Thank you. South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just want to echo the sentiments of Colombia that was that had put forth that the amendments to the draft report needs to be shared with all the states. We do not want it to be in the final report because we wouldn't have privy to the information and the wording as amended by the Secretariat. So we'd like to see those inputs before it gets into the final report in the spirit of transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, South Africa. I believe the Secretariat has noted concerns of South Africa and Colombia. Yeah. Secretariat, you want to comment?
Just that, as the chair said, most of them are editorial and rephrase of some paragraph. But by all means, you'll be informed. And if you have any kind of challenges, we are here. The issue that we have is that most of the people related to the safety that were attended the safety stream will be leaving tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So our capability to reopen some discussion will be limited. However, we will send you all the modification, and you can see it in the report. And once again, they are mostly editorial. They are not changing substance in this one. But once again, fully agree with the transparency on the process.
Thank you very much, Secretary, for the clarification. Mexico, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I very much want to support Colombia, and I'd like to make a suggestion. Normally, with this type of exercise, we get the text on this screen, and then it's much easier to be able to follow the changes that are being made, not when they're drafting. Of course, I understand what you're meaning there. It's not necessary to put them up when it's just drafting, but if we've got amendments of substance in order to better understand this and have more transparency, it's better to have this up on the screen. That's my suggestion, Chairman.
Secretariat?
So your suggestion is noted. However, in divisional type meetings, because we don't want to get into the exercise of drafting on the fly, that is usually not the practice. We gather, we get the comments, and then we adjust the text, and by adjust, I'm saying editorially and grammatically, but not changing the intent. Because if we go into the exercise of putting it up on the screen, we may be here for a long time. So the practice has always been, and it's also being conducted in Committee A, is to do it as we're doing. Now, with regards to the comments that we've received, we just thought that in the interest of the time of the committee, because they're mostly editorial and they're not changing the intent of the paragraphs, we just accepted them as such. When they have more, for example, the recommendation, the additional recommendation suggested by the United States, we're asking them to read it out. Or when there's an addition of text into the paragraph, we're asking them to read it out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Secretary, for the clarification. South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to highlight that editorial changes can change the content and the substance of the paragraph. I would like to make a proposal that you post an amended report before the final report is then presented before this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, South Africa. Secretariat, you have the floor.
So most probably in the next 2-3 days, the final report will be published. And of course, as we've done for this one, some revision could be made if you feel that something was dramatically changed or the changes affected the intent of that particular paragraph or recommendation. And we will make sure that everyone will have access to them and to input the work, because once again, what we want to make sure is that whatever you've said here, it's well reflected in our report, and this will constitute the basis for the final approval.
Thank you very much, Secretary, for the assurance. So we've considered the first part of it, the 7.1. So let's look at the 7.2 and the recommendations at 7.21. So on that 7.2, you have there are two recommendations, 7.21 and 7.22. Netherlands, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's a small one in 7.14. We suggest to delete the name of Eurocontrol as in the revised working paper. Eurocontrol is no longer participating. It's the third line of 7.14.
Thank you. Noted. Secretariat has taken notes and will delete accordingly. No further comments. So we move to 7.3. The report itself, 7, 18, 19, 20, 20, all the way to 28, including the recommendations. South Africa.
Person, with regards to 7.1.7, I would like to propose in paragraph A that we delete and by the further delegating safety oversight functions to the RSOs, I would like to propose that we stop at mechanisms. The reasoning behind this is in the absence of GASOS not being fully matured, I would suggest that we delete after mechanism, the wording after mechanisms. Then further with regards to paragraph B, we propose in the first sentence with regards to the carrying out of safety oversight functions on behalf of the member states, that statement should be deleted. Thank you.
Thank you, South Africa Secretariat.
Yes, I think that we have assembly resolutions, and the latest one, it's Assembly 3914, that acknowledge that RSO have an important role to play in carrying out safety oversight function on behalf of their member states and in addressing safety issue at the regional level. And they're in two parts of the Assembly Resolution 83914. Was already decided by the Assembly. It's in an Assembly resolution on that particular one. Which one to delete?
South Africa, the other point you made, you asked for, is it B, a portion of B to be deleted? Can you come again, please?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Chair, the reason behind this was, if you look at the entire concept of GASOS, this is basically supporting the concept contained in the GASOS document. And our view is, with the GASOS not having matured adequately, by leaving this, we are already saying there's not even a reason to proceed with GASOS, because from what the Secretariat says, he said in terms of the Assembly resolution, this has already been provided for. Thank you, Chair.
South Africa, let's move slowly. There were two aspects of the intervention. One was deleting the end of the A on page 7.6 and by further delegating safety oversight functions to the RSO, which Secretary commented on. Then there was a second part of, we want you to repeat that second part, not to clarify.
Chair, in paragraph B, the statement goes that ICAO acknowledged that RSOO have important role to play in carrying out safety oversight function on behalf of the member state. We are requesting that the statement from carrying out safety oversight function on behalf of member state be deleted. Thank you, Chair.
I have no problem. It's an Assembly resolution that directs us to do that, but I don't think that I think that we are losing the importance that all the member states during the last 15 years put on strengthen the RSO. This is exactly the approach that will make us lose the focus on RSOs. So I don't know if anyone agrees that we should, and once again, I think we've already had a discussion and nobody raised any question on that particular paragraph yesterday. But acknowledging the fact that right now we have 161 member states involved in regional mechanisms, cooperation mechanisms that are designed specifically to help and support their members in enhancing their capabilities, I think we are losing a little bit of the importance that we give to the RSOs. But maybe it's just my impression. I'm happy to hear other inputs from the floor. And I think we have some.
Yeah, South Africa, we'll come back to you. Australia.
Thank you, Chair. Just a small point in 7.19. Australia would like the report to recognise that Working Paper 76 was presented on behalf of another 13 Asia-Pacific states. Thank you.
Noted, thanks. Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I go to what I wanted to comment on, I would like to contribute to the discussion on the issue raised by South Africa. I believe we should recognize that what GASOS is introducing that is new is the recognition, assessment and recognition by ICAO. The RSOs already performing some safety oversight functions on behalf of some of their members. This has been part of one of the reasons why they were established to assist and where the capacity does not exist at the state level. Some of those activities are being done by the RSOs. So as we speak, RSOs are performing some safety oversight activities, functions for member states. I think what GASOS is introducing into this mix is the concept of assessment and recognition, meaning that it goes beyond you setting up your RSOs, then ICAO will assess and recognize, giving additional level of, I don't know what word to use, but so I want to suggest that what is written in B of this recommendation is what is happening right now. So yeah. That's just. Well, so, I have my comments on.
Okay.
So if you
continue, please.
Okay. So paragraph 7.21, on the fifth line 5 of 7.21, and that's it says. The committee, in principle, agreed on the way forward with a view to maintaining the momentum of improvement in the coming years. However, it noted that due to the financial implication associated with the plan, it was subject to the Council approval for its continuation. This is where I have my comments. This condition of putting this clause that it should be subject to the Council approval for its continuation was not part of the discussion. However, we recognize that in most cases, if not in all cases, anything that will go to the Assembly will normally go through the Council. But since this clause was not included in the other projects that have financial implications, such as the GUSR recommendations, their implementation, the GASOS pilot projects, I didn't see anything saying that you must subject it to the Council approval. And I think we should be consistent in the way we put our our report. So if we want to say that all projects, programs that have financial implications, we are going to add that clause, then it must be added across board, not just on this issue of AFIPLAN. So we are suggesting that if we want to do that, we either make sure we add that clause that due to financial implication for all those projects or programs that have financial implications, we must put the clause that it must be subject to council approval, or we should not put it for this AFIPLAN only. And also, we would like to suggest that there should be a recommendation specifically to request that ICAO supports the continuation of AFIPLAN. There's no recommendation on the AFIPLAN at all in the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe the Secretariat has noted your proposal to delete the last part, referring to financial constraints and subject to council approval, so it to be incorporated. And your earlier intervention on the fact that the RSOs are already performing the specified function, we can look at it two ways. We can just maintain it, it's factual, what is stated, or is it superfluous? They already do that. Do we remain silent? I think it does no harm to just leave the B as it is. You know, acknowledge that RSOs have an important role to play in carrying out safety oversight functions on behalf of their member states within the Global Aviation Safety Plan framework in addressing safety. It's just re-emphasizing the role the RSOs are playing, so that is fine. Thank you very much, Nigeria, for your intervention. Netherlands, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My point is actually about another issue. It's about 7.23, almost at the last sentence of the page. The discussion on this working paper was about dissemination of information and regional cooperation about that. And that was actually a rather operational issue. There was no discussion about that we need new amendments to annexes or PANs. That was not asked during the meeting, and it was not replied by the Secretariat either. So we were very puzzled to see this last part of the sentence, and we actually like to propose to delete the words after armed conflict, so the words and that it may need it to be elevated to an annex or PANS document. I also want to refer to what is noted before. It's in Doc 10084. Doc 018084 is a guidance material. And for guidance material, they can be updated every now and then. We even asked for regular updates of this document, this excellent document. But it's a living document. It could be updated when needed. And when there is a need to refine the definition, you can do it in the document. But we think what is stated here for going to an annex and PANS is far too heavy, and it was not discussed in this at this agenda item. So we better think to delete it. There are all other opportunities to review this definition if someone needs it. That was actually also confirmed by the Secretariat. That's always possible, but not to go for a strong way via annexes and PANs, etc. So that's my point. And not to reopen the debate again, I think it's better to just to delete these last words between and document at the end of this page. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Netherlands, for your intervention. I'll give the floor to the Secretariat to comment.
So, thank you for your comment, but I beg to differ. There was a Secretariat discussion at the result of a comment from Mexico, I believe, about the definition, where we clarified that that definition is in the conflict zones manual, and then the further discussion was there. But I will let Mexico and others that talked about the definition to then weigh in whether we should remove that or not, because this is catering to those interventions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mexico, you want to comment on that?
Yes, Chairman. Thank you. Yes, it's true that we were involved in this debate and we were supported by various countries, Nigeria, Kenya, Russia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Cuba. Those are the ones that I remember. Perhaps there were others as well. We have to maintain, I believe, what is being said in the way in which it's been summarized. I don't think it's the right time to make changes. We're not in the middle of negotiations. We're just reviewing what we recall about this debate. So we would like us to stick to how it's presented in the document. We want it to be kept as it stands. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mexico. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. I would like to refer again to 7.17, recommendation B. We have the impression that the way it is drafted now fully goes along with working paper 158 that was broadly supported in the committee. Therefore, we support the view of the Secretariat that the draft fully reflects the discussions so far. And we would also support the intervention of the distinguished delegation of Nigeria in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Germany. Uganda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make my intervention very simple and brief. I would like to support both interventions of Nigeria, and I think Germany just spoken a while ago. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I would like to propose, because Nigeria proposed making a specific recommendation to reflect what was discussed. And therefore, I would like to make a proposal to add another recommendation, H, to say extend the African Comprehensive Implementation, or otherwise known as AFI plan, and I could add to enable it to accomplish its objectives. But that last part can be left out. The most important thing is to specifically add that provision to extend the plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ghana. Is it under recommendation 731? You said H.
Yeah, I could be looking at the wrong page, but I thought that the recommendations are in 73-1.
Okay.
On, if I am not wrong, if I am mistaken, wherever it is.
Okay.
Yeah, under 7.29. So you add.
Yeah, okay. Again, I think Secretariat endorses your proposal. Maybe you can draft the text and bring it to Secretariat to be incorporated.
Yeah, and I have said it briefly. I think it would go like that, along that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uganda. It's now the turn of Greece to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and it's back to 723. I would like to support the comments made by the Netherlands. I still believe that we should be more faithful to what exactly what is discussed here, and also my point of view is that still the manual is guidance material, and if we elevate it to annex or pans, it's a totally different issue, and it's not something that we have discussed up until now. So I would feel more comfortable if we omitted this last part of the sentence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Greece. So we are divided over whether to include the potential elevation of dock 10084
Just the definition of conflict zone, because that was not circulated to state.
Okay, I'll give the floor to Secretariat for further clarification.
My recollection of this discussion was not the manual to be elevated to annex or PANS, was the definition of conflict zones. And the whole point was because a manual is not circulated to states, international organizations for comments. But again, that's my recollection, and I would let the states that make this intervention to clarify.
Okay, we'll flag 7.23 for a moment to consider the others. We'll come back to it. Norway, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would actually also like to support the Netherlands on the proposed text change on 7.23.
Thank you, Norway. Finland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm still, yes, first of all, I like to express our support for Netherlands. But however, I'm still coming back to 7.2, recommendation 7.21b. I like to express our strong support to Secretariat, because this is one of the most relevant elements in our work, becoming work. And echoing, therefore, very much what Germany and Nigeria has mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Finland. Cuba, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to come back to 7.23 to support what Mexico has said on this. In reality, we believe that it is important to keep the text as it stands, because sometimes during the debate, we're rather isolated from what's happening in the rest of the organization, but we have to remember that we're working on amendments to Annex 11 and 15 that are related to conflict zones as well. We have to also remember this concept of conflict zones refers to a council decision, which does not have the same official status, but I think, therefore, it's very appropriate the way this has been worded in the text. And as a delegation, we want to support this as drafted, and we also support what Mexico has said on this.
Thank you very much, Cuba. Colombia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, Cuba has taken the words out of my mouth. We think that Mexico has correctly expressed our idea on this, and we need to stick to the document as drafted. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can conclude on the 7.3. What we'll do is we invite Netherlands, Finland, Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, and Secretariat to look at it and get the appropriate wording so that we can make progress. Thank you for your understanding. Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very much delighted to appreciate the ICAO support to Democratic People's Republic of Korea. So, considering the current draft text, so we once again invite you to air navigation safety in DPRK. So I'd like to propose to add some the editorial sentences for about following. That the committee is informed that the issues relating to the working paper 72 presented by the DPRK could be submitted to the upcoming ICAO's council meeting for further positive discussions, accordingly that ICAO and its member states would take appropriate action and support for the reinstatement of suspension of commercial aviation services in DPRK, considering the priority of the effect on safety of international flight operation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Democratic Republic of Korea. So we capture your concerns. What the report says is reflects the discussions that we had in the committee. And I believe that your intervention now goes beyond that. However, that doesn't mean to say that ICAO will be working with you and all stakeholders aligned with the UN resolutions to try and find a solution to the problems that you're facing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. And any further comments on the rest of the paper? Nigeria.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Item 7.29, that's paragraph 7.29, recommendation 7.3/1, bracket Charlie. I want to read what is written here. My understanding of what is written here is slightly different from what was discussed. Further improve the planning and implementation regional groups and regional aviation safety groups mechanisms to enhance the coordination and alignment of implementation between regions. My understanding of what we discussed was more to do with the alignment, coordination alignment of the GASP and the planning and implementation regional groups, their activities and their recommendations, the implementation of such being aligned and being coordinated. Because the regions here, I don't know whether I didn't get it, but I think it was more to do with making sure that there's proper coordination between the RASGs and the PIGs in terms of aligning and coordinating their activities and their recommendations.
Thank you, Nigeria. Secretariat.
Thank you for the comments. It's important to know that right now we have two elements of implementation coordination. One is how the GASP and the GAMP are implemented at the regional level through the RASGs and PERG, but also how these RASGs and PERGs, together with all the others from different regions, are collaborating in order to exchange and share best practices and some implementation solution that they found for that specific region and could be implemented in other regions. So practically that's why we feel the need to have this, because there are a lot of good practices and good initiatives in some regions that are not necessarily followed in other regions. And what we want to make sure is that we have this we have this view on all elements of RASG and PERG in all the region, and we can come and consolidate the set of best practices that are applicable not only for one region, but could be applicable for different regions as well. This was the scope.
Thank you, Secretary, for the clarification. Maybe we could clarify better by indicating to enhance the coordination and alignment of implementation between the two bodies and between regions. So that will, in essence, capture Nigeria's point of coordination between RACS and PEG, and it also addressed your clarification on coordination between bodies in the various regions. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of consideration of WP 309. So WP 309 is adopted subject to the review of the text in the 723? In 723, yeah. 7.23. Thank you very much. We have a final paper to consider. It's rather very short, so I suggest we look at it before we break for coffee, with your permission. I see no objection. Thank you very much. So we consider working paper 310, draft report on agenda item 8, which dealt with emerging safety issues. The floor is open for comments on 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4. 8.4 deals, talks about the recommendations, 8.1.1 up to bullet point I. Oh, sorry, let's give the Secretariat a minute to, I'm moving too fast, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're considering WP 310, draft report on agenda item 8 on emerging safety issues. We'll consider the first part of it, which starts from 8.1 all the way to 8.4 and the recommendations under 8.4 up to bullet I, India, I. United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. On item 8.2, we'd like to suggest some additional wording, and I will read that wording to you. The committee reviewed AN-Conference 13, Working Paper 104, Revision Number 1, presented by Japan regarding measures to prevent objects falling off airplanes. The committee agreed, and here's the change, that based on data from regional aviation safety groups, a decision that is based on risk may be made to request the Council consider developing a study on the subject together with related guidance material on preventative measures. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United States. Secretariat has no objection to your inputs. Thank you very much. We move to 8.2. And we start from 8.5, 8.6, 8.7, 8, 8.9, up to 8.10, and the recommendations under 8.10. Colombia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. On 8.9, which refers to Working Paper 194, this document received a great deal of support from member states. So I think we need to actually include the specific recommendations in this report that were in Working Paper 194.
Secretariat.
I'm going to ask for 30 seconds to have Dr. Ansah on the podium, and I would ask you to repeat the question, please.
Colombia, you have the floor.
Just a moment.
One moment.
Waiting for translation, no problem. All set?
Yep. Colombia.
Okay, mil gracias.
Thank you very much. So, I am referring to Working Paper 194 from IAOPA. Are you listening? So, the request to make this even clearer, referring to the contents of this working paper, because it garnered a great deal of support from many member states. So would it be possible to include the recommendations from this working paper word for word in the draft report. Just take them over lock, stock and barrel, the recommendations from the working paper.
Colombia Secretariat will come back to you. Venezuela, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you and thank you for your leadership in this committee and also the work of the Secretariat on all of these issues. And congratulate the participants and the experts. It's been very enriching. Now, under 8.7, we'd like to clarify that our state recognise the efforts of all parties. And in our working paper, we want to continue with these activities within ICAO and consider certain new aspects which have been identified as emerging hazards, as we mentioned in 3.1 of our working paper 154, so that we can reflect the full spirit of the working paper. So we would like this to be reflected in 8.7 or else in the recommendation 8.2/1. And we know you're going to be dealing with RPAS 5.3, and we will make the necessary contributions and comments also in Committee A. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Venezuela. Secretariat will respond to both issues from Colombia and Venezuela.
Apologies, that's a serious incident. Yes, as the item specifies, Mrs. Carey is here. Can you come to the podium, please? What a relief.
In terms of Colombia, can you clarify?
No, but the last one.
Yeah. You want to?
Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Just since I have not been in here before, I am Leslie Carey. I'm the chief of the RPAS section. And regarding the comments on the text in the report, paragraph 8.7 and the recommendation, it is true that we kept these quite concise because there will be extensive discussion of this exact same material in Agenda Item 5.3 on RPAS. So we were trying to keep things consolidated in that report so that we're not just duplicating. The items that are in the paper are part of the regular work program already of the RPAS section and the RPAS panel. So this work is underway. The additional training activities are still to be addressed further. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the clarification on 8.7. Secretary, you still have the floor to to comment on Colombia's proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you for the question. We do agree with the recommendations from the IOPA paper. I just wanted to know if there's any other comments in terms of the paragraph of 8.9 that you would like to address, because that would basically be in a summary of what IOPA recommendations were.
Colombia.
Microphone for Colombia. Could you please repeat the last part of what you said?
Is there anything else you would want to change in the report, except for just including the recommendations from IOPA?
Okay. No, está bien así.
No, that would be fine. With the recommendations included, thank you very much.
We are happy to go with the recommendations.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Secretariat. Columbia, thanks for your proposal. So this brings us to the end of the consideration of Working Paper 310, Emerging Safety Issues, and also to the end of this afternoon's session. And I want to thank all of you for your support and for making it easy for me to serve you. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you. Thanks to the Secretariat, to the interpreters for doing a great job. And Secretariat will say a few words before we break finally and go for a well-deserved coffee break. Secretariat.
Thank you. On my side, I really want to acknowledge the great effort and work that we've all put together in these 4 days. It was an amazing experience for me especially, because we can see exactly how the new initiatives, the new way forward for developing and increasing safety are discussed and debated. That means that there are thoughtful elements that should be embedded in whatever we are designing for the support of the member states. And I'm really happy to have the opportunity to be the secretary of this committee. Thank you, all of you, and make sure that we will, you can be sure that we will incorporate your elements in here. We will discuss with you further to make sure that all the language that you wanted to have are well reflected. And before I give the floor to my boss, to Mr. Creamer, I see just one country, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. Before the Director of Air Navigation Bureau, Mr. Stephen Patrick Creamer, he will have the last word when he speaks. No further interventions. So I'll give the floor to South Africa.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I think you couldn't recognize us. We actually wanted to just come in when you were talking about recommendations, if you may allow us, Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We note that under paragraph 8.8, you have actually captured what was discussed in the paper that we presented. And then, but we would like to propose additional recommendation under 8.10 regarding the GSI course.
Go ahead.
Okay, that will be recommendation 8.3/3, development of GSI course. That ICAO prioritize the development of GAIS courses across all the ICAO USOP audit areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat.
Thank you, South Africa, for your intervention. I believe that your request is very well captured in the report, and we didn't feel the need for a recommendation to reiterate that. And in fact, as the interventions from the Secretariat mentioned, we've already started doing two of those courses in line with what you suggested in your paper for ANS and AGA. And as resources become available, we will be doing more. So that's already in our work program. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Uganda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I rest assured I don't want to spoil your good day and our good day. I asked for the floor to convey and to express a vote of thanks for the excellent work you did. Thank you so much, because you accomplished your work and our work in a record time. Some of us who have attended meetings like this. We also want to thank Secretariat, because this means they did a wonderful job that facilitated effective and very expeditious consideration of this important matter, and the people behind us who made us understand each other and therefore made our work very easy. So I would like to ask for a round of applause for the work you did, and all of you.
Thank you, Uganda. It was a collective effort. I mean, we did it all together. Thank you. See no further request for the floor. So we hand over to the Director of Air Navigation Bureau, Mr. Creamer, to have the final words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all. Good afternoon for all of the hard work this week. Frankly, the representative from Uganda has stolen my thunder. I simply wanted to take this opportunity, because many of you will not be here at the close of the week next week, to appreciate the hard work that Mr. Alate has put into chairing this committee, and to all of you for the work that you've put into it. As we spoke about at the beginning of the week in plenary, while this is an air navigation conference, safety issues are at essentially the foundation of any changes to address capacity and efficiency. And so having an effective safety oversight mechanism when the convention in these states that can interact with the air navigation service providers and the industry effectively is the bedrock of our program. So thank you all very much for your activity this week. We'll look forward to seeing the final report in the full conference later this week with the revisions that you have proposed. And as the Secretary said earlier, as Mr. Radu said, after the final reports of the committee are published, you have the opportunity to come back and give us any final adjustments if the editorials did not meet what was done today. And then we can incorporate those in a revision prior to the final report out into the conference. But there should not be any new material, certainly. Thank you all very much, and we wish you a pleasant remainder of the weekend.